What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Titletown South Florida, the Miami Herald's high school sports show. High school football back in full swing. We're in practice mode now, getting ready for game mode in a couple of weeks. I'm Andre Fernandez, your host, deputy sports editor at the Herald, and joined once again by our sports writer, our colleague, David Wilson, who we announced last week. The man's having a career change, and he's going to leave us he's going to kind of leave us. He's going to be back off and on, including this week.
Yep.
But welcome back to the show, David, and congratulations. Let's tell you directly, congratulations on the choice of going to law school. It's going to be an attorney.
Thanks. Yeah. We'll be back. We were talking this morning. We'll every show up until the start of the season, I should be around. We're going to run through previews, which will start today. And, after that, I'll still be around, I would guess, pretty regularly. So not going too far, at least as far as this show is considered.
Yeah, and you'll still be in South Florida. People still see you around. We're at Media Day. So but first off, Before anything, I want to talk a little bit about just what we learned from high school football Media Days, and our thanks to both the BCAA, who handled the Broward side, and to Football Hotbed, who handled Brandon Odoy and his crew, who handled the one in Dade that had a lot of South Florida, not just Dade, but Broward teams and a few Palm Beach teams sprinkled in as well. Lots to talk about. Like David said, we're going to be bringing you basically what we're going to do is we're going to preview the season. We're going to break this up into a few different episodes. We're going to take on one class at a time and give you a comprehensive look at what to expect as the season is only 3 weeks away now as of this recording. We're a couple weeks away from preseason. This coming weekend, there's a few of those referee scrimmages. So we're in complete football mode now as we get ready for the 2023 year. We'll start this week with our Class 4M breakdown. As we know, Columbus took the crown last season. But we'll take a look at each of the contenders, including the Explorers. And before anything, remember, if you're watching this show, you can catch it on YouTube. You can catch it on MiamiHerald.com, as always. And if you can't watch it, you can only listen to it. Check it out on Spotify, iTunes, every place you normally listen to your pods. It's pretty much available for you. And we thank you once again for joining us. So let's dive right in, David. We'll go in geographic order. We'll start from north to south here in Class 4M. A team that we kind of previewed pretty in depth last week, the Monarch Knights, District 12-4M. It's that district. If just to refresh people's memories, it's the Knights, it's Stoneman Douglas, Coral Springs, and Olympic Heights from Boca Raton. But at least going into the season, just from the preliminary look, it looks like the Knights, coming off a regional semi last year, have reloaded. They brought back a lot of the key players, including quarterback A.J. Hairston, Jabari Brady, a big wide receiver. They got a transfer in up front of the D-line, and Gabriel Birnbaum. They look like they're more deep up front and on both sides of the ball, not just on offense, but on defense. And that could make them a dangerous contender. And remember, the fact that they're in Region 3 and won't have to face the Columbuses and the Westerns and the Palmettos as that battle will take place in Region 4. But let's start with the Knights. You saw them for a little bit on Media Day. David, what'd you think of Monarch?
Yeah, it's hard not to be impressed by them. I mean, I talked about this on our podcast with Susan last week, and anytime you have a quarterback, like we were talking about with regards to Miami, like the reason, like to feel somewhat optimistic about the Hurricanes is they have Tyler Van Dyke. Like how many with them, I was talking to Susan, how many times have they gone into a quarterback with 3 guys fighting for a job, and you have no idea who the guy's going to be, right? Or maybe a young guy who people are excited about, but you haven't seen it yet. Monarch's got one of the best quarterbacks in South Florida, as obviously you talked about a lot last week. A.J. Hairston, they've added to that too. But just having that one quarterback and a guy who, in high school football, a guy who can do it with his legs is so important too. And that's what he can bring to the table, right? Is he's not just a runner, he's not just a passer, he's a dual threat guy. And that's really important at the high school level, and especially, it means your offense doesn't stall, right? If you have a guy who's a great passer, sometimes those offenses can stall, right? You miss a couple throws. When you have a guy who can do it with his legs too, and they added Clayton Cannon II, who's a good running back to play with him back there. They're going to be like rock solid, I think. Like there's not going to be a lot of games where they just no-show kind of offensively because of that tandem. And then guy I'm sure you're probably about to bring up is Jabari Brady, their star wide receiver, who is only a sophomore and poised. Looks like he might be like the next up in South Florida at that position.
He had actually talked a little bit about just the offseason he had. He visited with Ohio State. I know he's heard from Brian Hartline, guys like that. I mean, they're all over him already as a sophomore. But another kid I like that I heard good things about was Samurai Reed. Love his name already. But the kid, that potent weaponry that he's going to have, that Hairston's going to have to throw to, if they can run the football as well and kind of balance that out, I think that's going to be the key for them. Not just in the district, they should be okay, but going beyond that, if they can actually contend against a team like a Western, against a Columbus, and really make a push for a championship. And let's not forget, even though they're not in our coverage zone, Palm Beach Central is still really good.
Right.
The team
that's probably the biggest challenger up there for them right now, on paper at least. And yeah, I mean, you talking about the running game. Clayton Canu I think last year was at Douglas, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Ran for more than, he was the number 2 running back there too, I think, and still ran for more than 500 yards. Obviously, Douglas always plays a lot of power football. They've always got good offensive linemen. But yeah, they've got the personnel certainly. I think to have a really good offense. Defense probably a little bit more of a question mark, but they're optimistic. Like you went out there last week or 2 weeks ago. I guess you had them on the show last week, and then we saw them this week. They're optimistic. They've got high hopes and every reason to, I think, right now.
Yeah, and can't discount. Speaking of, perfect segue to talk about their rival Stoneman Douglas.
Yeah,
coming off an 8-4 season. Yes, they lose a guy like Clayton Cannon and a couple others, but a team we saw at Media Day. Ryan Spallino, the senior quarterback, is there.
Mm-hmm.
Keith Hinesley, I believe, first year in charge.
Yeah, he was at Delray American Heritage.
Right.
I think when they won it all it was before I was down here in South Florida.
Yeah, he has some history,
right?
some history of success.
An accomplished coach. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, that's again, I think those are the two that you look at there. Coral Springs a little younger, but kind of interesting. Eddie Brown takes over there. Yep. He was at Boyd Anderson before, trying to rebuild that 4-6 squad, and then Olympic Heights in a tough spot at 1-9 there. But I mean, looking at it overall, I think it's clear Monarch is pretty much going in the favorite, but don't discount Douglas to make a push there as well, as they're always well coached. And
yeah, they always are a playoff team, basically, right? Like at this point, I don't know how many. It's been a bunch of years in a row, excluding the COVID year, that they've been in the postseason.
Exactly. So going a little further south, now we will dive into that big Region 4 here, and just talk a little bit about, first off, on the north end, District 13-4M, where Western is coming off a little bit of a disappointing finish, more than a little bit for them. I know Colin Hurst got hurt. They got the bow out in the second round. This is a team that started with state title hopes at the beginning of last season. They're feeling like it is again, even though Hurst is gone. They brought in Davy Belfort, a quarterback transfer from Gulliver, and they've loaded at several positions. That district is them, Coral Glades, Cypress Bay, and Taravella. But let's start with those Wildcats. David, you got to talk to them for a while, Coach Rakovich over there, and a few of their guys. What was your impression of the reloaded version of Western?
Well, he's always optimistic. He's always excited. Last year was such a strange season for them. They could never really get their offense going, and then they finally did. I was actually the one game I think I saw them last year. They exploded against Plantation. I want to say it was either week 10 or week 11, one of the last couple games of the season, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, they got it together. No one doubted their talent. Colin Hurst, I think, finished second in Broward history in passing yards, and then, like you said, got hurt, and their postseason flamed out pretty quickly. They've reloaded. Davy Belfort, coming from Gulliver Prep, transfers to Western, already committed to Virginia Tech. They expect him to be one of the best quarterbacks in Broward County. Tavani Mizell, who's been in a bunch of different high schools. Most recently, he was at DeMatha. The family was up in Maryland for a year, but from Western Broward County, comes home to play his senior year at Western. Always, Rack's an O-line guy, right? They've always got a good offensive line. He's really excited about their linebackers core. With Julian, I was going to say he
couldn't stop talking about his linebackers at media.
Yeah, so I mean the talent's there certainly, and in this region's tough. I think both of us think Columbus is the clear. It's hard not to just view them as the clear favorite right now, but Western, on paper they look like they could be certainly the best team in Broward County in this classification. Right there with them and Monarch probably. And maybe Columbus's toughest challenger because they've got the quarterback, right? They've got the quarterback and they've got a running back. Again, they're kind of a pipeline at some of the other important positions like O-line, D-line. Whoever they plug in tends to be pretty good there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see what Mizell can do and how much of a step he takes is maybe potentially one of the best, if not the best, running backs down here this season if he lives up to the potential. And obviously their wide receiver core.
He played with Belfort too. We should note at Cardinal Newman a couple of years ago, so they have some chemistry there in the backfield.
Right, and as we know, Newman becoming a powerhouse themselves now, kind of the way Dwyer was with Coach Jack Daniels out there. So yeah, definitely a team that's experienced. I mean, looking across that district on that factor alone, you got to give them the nod. But a couple teams that are still, kind of building up toward potential contention, if not this season, maybe in the near future. You got Cypress Bay, who's had some good teams in the past, came close to winning a state title several years ago. Brett Hood doing a good job there. That squad, we saw their quarterback, Devin Gonzalez, at a camp in the offseason, a camp that Larry Bluestein held, and he looked impressive. Like, he looked like one of the better quarterbacks that you might see all year this year. And then their former coach, veteran Rocco Casula, who everybody remembers from the Aquinas days, winning state championships there after George Smith stepped down and he took over there for a while. Now he's at Coral Glades and really inherited a tough situation, a team that really was on the ropes, kind of rebuilding a little bit, after a 6-3 year. But when you look at it, he's won everywhere he's been. If you give Rocco some time and give him a couple seasons, he'll turn the team into a winner. So just from looking at some of his players that he brought to media day, I mean, he's got a quarterback, Damian Zapata, a senior. He's got a big tight end DN, Keyshawn Sinford, Corey Grant, another senior linebacker, Andrew Eccleston, who plays wide receiver and running back. So a nice core of seniors there that have some experience to work around. So, I mean, while they're not ready probably to topple a Western, let's say, they're not going to be a doormat, that's for sure, with Rocco there.
Yeah, some good coaches. Brett Hood, who took over late in the offseason at Cypress last year, and that team they made the playoffs. They're really competitive in most of the games they played. Some good coaches, it seems like, in this district in particular.
Yeah, and then let's move a little bit deeper into Broward here as we go to District 14 for him. That one's pretty wide open, and it was last year, and it promises to be again this year. Cooper City, Flanagan, Somerset Academy, and of course West Broward. And some interesting tidbits that we learned throughout media day on this front. You got a chance to catch up a little with Flanagan, who has a new coach. Tell us about their new coach who just got hired about a week ago, I believe. Yeah,
Benjamin Roll, really impressive. He has been with the program for about a decade. He was, I think, the JV head coach, or he was coaching with the JV. I think he was the JV head coach or coaching with the JV team. When they won, what year was that when they won the state championship?
During the Devin Bush year when they had
2014, right? Was it 2014, somewhere around there?
Somewhere in that era. But yeah, it was the Devin Bush.
He was the JV.
He
was the JV coach then. So helped develop a lot of those guys. Has been in the program for a long time. I think been with like 4 different head coaches, right? Because Flanagan's kind of churned through coaches over the last couple of years. Seems to have the right attitude toward things. I'll say we met a lot of new coaches over the last week of doing these media days, and a lot of just really impressive. Got a lot of alumni coming back to the schools, or at least guys who have been around the program a lot, coming back to their schools, and coming, I think, with the right sort of attitude and understanding of what it takes to build a good program now, whether it's just good off-season programs, or he's Benjamin Roll is also a guy who's coached at the youth level, has coached in the parks before, and we know how important that is with the open transfer market in high school football too. It's important to have those relationships. So like you said, it's a wide open district. They think they're going to be much improved. They went 3-5 last year. I think West Broward, it looks like they're probably the favorite in that district right now, but wouldn't surprise me if Benjamin Roll gets Flanagan back on track, because we know, it's really not that long ago that they were one of the best teams in the state.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I agree with you. West Broward, let's just jump in on them.
Yeah.
I think they're the favorite for sure. I was really impressed with this kid, Josh Moore, the receiver, has a bunch of high FBS offers already. You look at this kid, just the size, the frame, the hands. This kid is the total package there. And they have other weapons too. It looks like that wide receiver position is going to be loaded for the Bobcats. Yeah. And they were 6-5 last year. They were a playoff team. So no reason to think that they're going to take any kind of drop off, barring any kind of setbacks that we're not expecting. for them to get back in the postseason and maybe this time make a little bit of noise on the top.
And they've got the quarterback back. Jonathan Murillo had a really good year last year. So
correct. So if they get good contributions from from their defensive side, seniors like Nick Vasquez, Carlos Morales, those guys, if those guys step up, make it a balanced squad, this could be, I think this is the favorite for sure in that district, even though it is competitive, but they might have a nod because when you look at talent like Moore, I mean, that's pretty special. In fact, speaking of that, let's go to our first video of this episode as I was able to catch up with West Broward's Joshua Moore.
Josh, tell me about your offseason, man. Where do you feel like you've improved the most? What areas do you feel like now on the field you could just see that you're better overall?
My offseason been just full of work. I improved on my route running, my drop it down low, breaking in and out of routes, my mobility, my ankle mobility, just like lower body strength and everything that can help me be a better person and perfect my craft.
How are you handling just the recruiting right now and everything? A lot of offers coming your way. So how are you sort of like dealing with that as you get ready for the season?
I love it, Coach. It's just a dream come true. It's like everything I prayed for and everything I worked hard for coming into reality, really. So I love it.
Which schools do you hear maybe the most from, where they've got the best communication with you, DMs, texts, whatever it is?
Definitely Miami U. They recruiting hard. FSU, West Virginia, Pitt, and that's about it.
When you think about the future and picking a school, obviously you're 2 years away from signing and in college, but what do you think is going to matter to you the most? Have you had those thoughts? Like these are factors?
My goal is to make it to the NFL. So I want to go somewhere that's going to put me in the league. Somewhere that's going to make my dreams come true.
West Broward this year, what do you think? Just coming off last season, a lot of strides were made, but how far do you think you guys can take this?
We're gonna make a big statement. We're gonna impact it all. We're trying to come for it all. So our goal is to make it to states and win states. So we'll try our best to achieve that goal.
Tell us a little bit about this team. What's the offense looking like? What are some of the guys you're gonna kind of rely on as leaders on that side?
This offense got a lot of weapons. So if you think you're gonna double me, then you got seven that's gonna score 2 times. So you really can't just double one person because then somebody else gonna be open. So,
where have you challenged yourself to improve the most? From based off of what you heard from maybe your coaches or other people that look at your game, college coaches. What advice do they say? Hey, get better at this before you get to college.
Basically, tell me to keep working hard and challenge myself mentally, work on my dropping down low and just basically perfect my craft in all aspects.
And do you have any weight room achievements, that you're proud of, that you're proudest of, like bench press, squat, things of that nature?
Bench press about 255, squat about 430, deadlift 430. So I'm just working to get stronger.
And speed-wise, what's maybe your fastest split, whether it's track or your 40?
Fastest 40 was a 4.5.
Where'd you run that?
Can't remember what camp it was at. I think it was at. I can't remember what camp.
Okay.
Did you do anything different this offseason to work on your speed? Maybe try to get a little faster?
I trained with my receiver coach, offensive coordinator, speed coach. He just gave me better, honestly. A lot of work with him. I'm tired of seeing his face, seeing him all the time.
Yeah, so I mean, he's probably the top recruit in the district potentially. When you look at it overall. But wrapping up 14-4M, besides West Broward, you mentioned coaches coming back. Art Taylor back at Cooper City. There's a guy that a lot of history there. I've known him for a long time. Glad to see him back in the saddle at Cooper City. No pun intended with the Cowboys. But he was responsible for 2 of the best seasons in Cooper City history, the 2 district championships that they've ever won. 1 year they almost threw a parade in his honor that they beat St. Thomas Aquinas, and remember his years at Deerfield Beach when Denard Robinson was there, and the team was at a state championship caliber level, playing Northwestern in the Orange Bowl, nearly won a state championship, came 1 play away from pretty much finishing the greatest team I've ever seen in Dade County history in 2007, the Miami Northwestern Bulls back then. But Cooper City, I think, will be competitive. And then you look at a Somerset Academy where it's a team that's very similar to West Broward, made the playoffs last year. Derek Baker with the coach there. I think they've got kind of the mix overall to potentially make the playoffs again. When you look at their roster, some good receivers, Johnny Arnius leading the way. Johnny Arnius Jr., a junior wide receiver there. Sebastian Graham on the defensive end. They went 6-5 last year. So expect the Panthers, expect the set, like they call themselves, to make it back to the playoffs potentially. And with that in mind, let's go quickly to District 15-4M, Columbus, Doral, Goldman, and Miami High. Now we're in Dade County. And when you look, and not only now we're in Dade County, now we're talking about the reigning state champions in District 15-4M. But before we get to the Explorers, David, a lot of interesting tidbits again in this district. I mean, the one that struck me was right off the bat, the first team that showed up at Media Day, Goldman, which has been, cellar dwellers for many years, have started to build their way back in recent years, went the independent route for a while. That's some of the most impressive talent that I've seen at Goldman in a while. While they're not there yet to take on a Columbus necessarily, but I think they're at least going to be competitive, and I think they're going to have a lot more wins. Ariel Cabero, the coach there, has been there now 11 seasons. And one of the guys that stood out was the sophomore kid, Daryl Bell, who, another kid that's garnering a lot of offers already as a sophomore. We talked to him for a little bit. Here's Daryl Bell talking about the revitalized Gators.
So Daryl, tell me, Coach talked a little bit earlier about the process that it's been kind of building something at Goldman. Why was that important to you guys to start something new, especially these days where like a lot of guys maybe want to go to the big name teams, but what you've built there? Tell me a little bit about that, like the process that went into that.
I mean, my mindset was to build my own legacy at a school that was low so I can bring it up. I'm trying to build a team that haven't been built in years at Goldman. Because, Goldman is not really known for a big high school team. So my goal is to put it on the map and attract high play players.
What attracted you to that? Like, why did you, buy into that?
Really? Okay, first it was the education. The education is good. Second, I knew I can make my name big at that school. Played against competition. Might not be good competition, but it's Columbus, Miami, American. I just want to go against decent teams to make me better as a person, as a player. And I didn't want no easy way to states. I want to win states, me as a person. I want to lead my team. I don't want to get led. I want to be the leader of that pack.
This offseason, what did you feel like you developed the most as a player?
Definitely my strength, because I definitely got bigger. I got better as a player, a person, a leader as a team, educator on the field, my weight, my height, my playability, my ball skills. Everything that I didn't do good last year, I improved this year, and you will see it.
And where you at right now, height and weight, more or less, right now?
I'm at 6 foot, 182.
182.
Yes,
and did you get, what was your time, I guess bench press, those numbers, do you know that? Or?
Nah, I didn't match nothing out yet.
Okay.
But I rep 135 for 17 reps.
Okay. At the free safety position, where any areas that you feel already when you've been out on the field, you just feel more comfortable, you just feel better than you did a year ago? What are you noticing?
I mean, strong safety, I played strong safety last year. I'm really moving to free, so it's kind of new.
Okay.
But it's not at the same time, because strong, I'm usually in the box. Free, I'm in open field. I can play all sides of the ball. Strong safety, I really only can control one side. But now I can control deep passes on both sides of the field.
Florida State offered you, I heard.
Yes, sir.
You have a few others, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. How are you handling all of that? Because you're only in 10th grade and you're already hearing from all these colleges. I'm sure it's exciting, but at the same time, it's a lot. How are you kind of approaching that?
I don't know. It's a lot, but it's not at the same time. It's a lot that I can handle and control. But it's certain stuff that I just gotta mute because it'd be too much during school or I'm in a family matter. So really, I just hit up all the coaches, test all the coaches, get it out the way so it won't interact with my day going on.
What did you think of the Florida State offer, though?
No, I was happy. I was definitely happy with that.
Yeah.
Cause I didn't expect me to get an offer at Goldman at all.
Yeah.
But I had to shock the world, really.
Yeah. Why are you confident that now Goldman is not only going to be competitive, but can be competitive against the best of the best out there?
We've been working hard. It's a totally different team from last year. The mindset, the goal we have, we got a mission. We got a mission this year.
Well, Goldman's on a mission, and it'd be nice to see the Gators competitive again after all these years that they've been kind of, on the outs. But Doral is another team in that district too. They, except for Columbus, they were pretty competitive last year. Remember the great overtime game they had with Southridge at one point last year. They got to the playoffs. They lose Mark Wilder, but the Firebirds trying to reload, especially on the offensive side of the ball. It sounded, David, like they're opening it up a little more, going to be a little more balanced on offense from what they were talking about.
Yeah, it sounds like a little bit of a rebuild for Doral. We know Eddie Delgado from his time at Belen and now at Doral, that the way that they play offense, wing T for the most part, there's a matchup nightmare for some teams. And I know even though they lost a lot from last year, including Mark Wilder, as you mentioned, and a couple offensive linemen, which are obviously a big deal. It could be a little bit of more of a process for them, but it's hard not to envision them as one of those, likely playoff teams in this region. But yeah, I'll be really interested to see how different they look, right? How much they open things up a little bit. It seems like it's going to be more balanced rushing attack, which I think Coach Delgado was saying was the plan last year, and then Mark Wilder was just so good that he became a 2,100-yard rusher or whatever for them.
Right.
So yeah, they'll definitely look a lot different, but they're still Doral running basically a wing T offense. So they're going to look the same in a lot of ways too.
Yeah, Coach Delgado has too much of that Belen in him, like all those years running that offense.
Yeah.
And I think he doesn't want to go away from it completely.
Well, he came to Doral, and Doral hadn't been successful in a little while, and they worked. So stick with it. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but we'll see how it does. I mean, he thinks it's going to take them maybe a couple games to really get their feet under them and really start to get on a roll. Interesting choice for the preseason classic. They face a team that potentially could face in the playoffs in Palmetto. But we talked to two of their key guys, defensive end Omar Yaquez and wide receiver DB Ernest Mallard. Here's what they had to say about the Firebirds.
Ernest, so tell me a little bit about just Doral. In your first year there, what have you kind of seen out of this team, and what do you expect for this season for the Firebirds?
I think we're a really young team, but I think we're going to be great from the looks of it. I love the coaching; they take everything at high standards. They love the way we do things. I love the way they do things. I love the way they move me around and let me play whatever they need me at. And I feel comfortable with these guys. I wanna play with these guys, and I feel like they're ready to play with me. They're my brothers since my first year, and I just want to rock out and hopefully make it to states. That's the big plan. That's the goal.
Tell me about this team on offense. It's not a typical offense that you see all the time, but it's a lot of versatility there.
It's balancing. I'm getting used to it. This year, I think we're going to do more things, because we got more receivers now than running backs. So this year, from the looks, we didn't do it spring, but from the first game, since we getting everything together, it should be good. It's going to be coming and going.
It's going to open it up a little bit more. Omar, you've been at Doral now. This is senior year, right?
Yes, sir.
Fourth year with the program.
Yep.
Why? What has that been like, seeing Doral's football team develop, and now you guys are playoff contender every season?
Since my first year as a freshman, we went. It was COVID year, so it was really hard for us. Yeah. And with a new coach, a new program, it was a little different. We had to face different obstacles, but as you could tell, we overcame. And my sophomore year, we went 8-2, 8-3, lost to Homestead in the first round of playoffs. No, we lost to Miramar, first round of playoffs. Last year, this has just been growth every single year. Every single year we get new players, we get stronger. The coaches develop more different things. We get better at what we're bad at. We turn them into advantages. So, all of our cons turn into pros. And last year we ended up going to the regional title, lost against Columbus. But hopefully this year we end up state title team.
Yeah, we're turning those weaknesses into strengths, right?
Yes, sir.
Why do you feel? Well, tell me about that. What's something that maybe was a little bit of a weakness last year on the team that you feel like it's going to turn into a strength this year?
Last year was mostly depth.
Okay.
And also we didn't have a lot of depth. Our O-line was our starting five, and we only had like 7 O-linemen in total.
So if somebody went down.
So if somebody went down, we're in a struggle, but we still overcame those obstacles, and we have more depth on the defensive side. Before, like last year, I was only playing defensive line, defensive end, and we only had like about 6 guys that are defensive end, and like four out of the 6 like actually had like background playing defensive end. But now that we have more depth, I'm able to move back onto the offensive side and play a little bit tight end. And also, we have a lot of depth. So we have backup tight ends, we have backup defensive linemen, we have a lot of people all around. So we're able to spread out the field more.
On the defensive side, that's definitely, I'm sure, one of the goals, like keep the scoring down from what it was last year.
Yeah. Last year, we led a lot of points in the beginning of the half, and then we'll come back in the second half stronger, and probably put up about 6 points in the second half. But this year, hopefully, after all the training we've done in the off season, we start off strong and we finish all the way through.
Start faster, right?
Yes, sir.
On the offensive side, you ran the ball a lot last year. I heard this year you're still going to run the ball, but you might have a chance to open it up a little bit, be a little more balanced, right?
Yeah, because since we have more depth in the receivers aspect, we have a lot of good athletes like Ernest, we have Isaac, we have Jason, and we also have a brand new quarterback that is first year starter at varsity, and he's been reading the field perfectly.
Who's that? Who's the quarterback?
Jordan Leo.
Okay. And then he's brought like a lot of command of the offense. But
he's been as soon as he came to the team, he's been a leader, even though he was a backup. And now that he's a starter, it's even more leadership. And we've just been seeing him grow because he started off in the middle school team and also played JV as a middle schooler. So he's been coming up along the way.
Doral, as a school, I know they've been winning championships left and right, baseball, a bunch of other sports. How hungry are you guys to put that football right with it?
We're dying to put a football trophy on that trophy stand.
Well, it's going to come down to them in Columbus if they want to do that. But, that program's come a long way. They see them winning state titles in almost everything. So I think football's a matter of time. We'll see. We'll see if they can achieve that kind of balance this year and make it happen. But this is the obstacle. Before we talk about the obstacle, actually, Miami High, let's not forget about the Stingerees. My dad won't forgive me if I don't do that. Coach Dorian James, another interesting change there, was at Carroll City, was doing a good job reviving the Chiefs the last couple of years there. Former coordinator at Northwestern, history of winning football with Dorian James. So, it's been a tough go for the Stingerees in recent years. Ever since Cedric Irvin took them to the state semifinals a few years ago, they haven't really been able to get even close to that. So we'll see. We'll see what kind of talent he can pull down there and be able to kind of get the machine rolling down at Miami High. But, overall, though, Columbus, as we've said many times, the favorite for a reason to potentially repeat. They've never repeated before. They're trying to win back-to-back state titles for the first time. David, you spoke to their leader on offense, Alberto Mendoza, a guy coming off a great season last year. Looking forward to his senior season to see what he can do. And, a few of the weapons he had last year are gone. Notably Cedric Irvin is gone now. But it seems like the Explorers offense has reloaded with a lot of targets, including a big one in Benji Blackburn. But here's what Alberto had to say about the season coming up.
It's every year is a different mindset, or same mindset, different team. So you got to find what can mesh with that team, because every team is different. The way they come together, the way they think about things, the way that you have to motivate them. So every year you got to find new things. Fall camp's a great way to find that. So I'm finding ways that my offensive linemen, what gets them to tick, what gets them to go, because we have a new offensive line. So I already know gets my receivers to tick and gets them going locked in. So. I'm really excited just finding those things, and we're looking great in fall camp. We got some new guys on the block, such as Bryce Fitzgerald, who's doing great, and some guys that I'm really excited about. Our receiver core, there's a lot of kids stepping up, a lot of young guys that are really going to shock some people this year. So I'm really excited for that. So defense looking great. We go against the best defense we can go against every day in practice. So with the defensive line, our offensive line gets some great reps in, because our defensive line with Rob, Dalen, Dylan, and Willis McGay, it's incredible. So,
from a leadership standpoint, now you're a year older, what are you personally doing to be, even more of the present.
Yes, sir. There's definitely a lot more eyes on me from the younger guys looking at me. So it's about always not ever showing weakness or showing being a bad role model, because they're looking at you for anything, for how is he acting on the sideline, how is he coming off the field, how is he going on the field, how is he during practice, how is he during lift, is he skipping the lifts, is he skipping reps. So it's really just a whole mentality on how the younger guys look at you. And if you're skipping reps, walking off the field, walking on the field, the younger guys are going to do the same thing. Oh, if Alberto can do it, I can do it. So it's all about keeping the same mentality every day in practice. Even though I'm not in a competition like I was last year, it's about keeping the same mentality, like there's someone coming for my spot every single day.
Perfect.
On paper, to me, you've been at Columbus 4 years. Your brother played there before, so you probably followed Columbus even longer. On paper, there have obviously been some really talented teams. On paper, to me, it looks like this might be the deepest you guys have had in a long time. Do you feel that same way, where it just doesn't seem like there's like a whole lot of weaknesses on this roster? Yes, like you said, the O-line's new, but for the most part, it's a lot of guys who have played.
Our depth on, especially on defense, is incredible. Our depth on defense, we have a lot of depth on offense too, but we have a lot of depth this year. A lot of players who can step up. A lot of young guys who haven't played, because Columbus is a builder program. Stars on JV come up and people make names for themselves. Just like myself, I was a nobody sophomore year, and a lot of people are going to step up this year. So I'm super excited for the young guys.
You mentioned the D-line, and that looks like it has a chance to be one of the best in the state or maybe the country. What's it like to go up against those guys in practice every day?
It's amazing. Dalen is an absolute dog, and Rob Williams is someone that he just committed to FIU, but he's improved the most I've seen out of the whole defensive line. He's, during the spring game, batting balls, getting in line, getting sacks. It was incredible. During practice, he's disrupting the pocket a ton. So he's improved a ton. I'm super excited for him. He's going to be a huge playmaker this year.
And you mentioned Willis, the new guy there. A lot of those guys we've seen play for Columbus. Obviously, we've seen him play too. But just what has he brought to that defense?
He's brought a lot of blitz packages. He's a great pressuring the quarterback, making me get rid of the ball quick. During the spring game, had a lot of pressures, a couple sacks. So I'm really excited for him. I love Willis. He's a great guy, great Columbus. He fits into Columbus, so I'm really excited for him.
Yeah, I mean, you talked to him a little bit, and I like this Benji Blackburn kid. I think he's one of. Yeah. I mean, you don't see a lot of prototypical tight ends of that size down in South Florida.
He's really big.
Like, and he can do a little bit of everything. But he can do you block, catch, run, a little bit of everything. We talked to him too. Let's hear from Benji Blackburn, and Boston College commit.
Benjamin, tell us a little bit about just the development process for you, and how much have you learned in these past two seasons, past years?
Yeah, so really, I came to Columbus my freshman year, been there all 4 years, going into my senior year now. Started off as a JV/freshman player. Really did a good job there, got moved up going into my sophomore year. I played behind Gus McGee, committed, he plays now at the University of Charlotte. So I really got a lot of good reps behind him, I developed behind him. But then going into my junior season, gained a little bit of weight, gained a little bit of muscle. And I think that really helped me in terms of getting more playing time. And after my junior season is when I really started seeing more offers start rolling in, which I'm super grateful and blessed for. But then, throughout the recruiting process, I really visited a bunch of schools, saw what I liked, what I didn't like, and Boston College was really just the perfect fit for me from a standpoint of academics and athletics. It's a place where I believe I can be developed to take me to the next level, but I can also be developed socially, academically, spiritually, all of that. And, I think Coach Hafley has done a great job, along with Coach Szynski and Coach Ryan McCarthy. I think I'm a great fit for their program, and I'm really excited to be a Boston College commit.
I was gonna ask, a tight end down here, you don't see a lot of them, like with your, as far as like your build and like the prototypical tight end.
Yes, sir.
How much, what resources do you guys have as far as maybe tight end camps or anything to kind of like develop your skills at the position? What have you kind of done in the last few years to?
Well, I don't know so much about like tight end camps or whatever, but my position coach, Coach Dunn, the head coach, and he was a tight ends coach at Marshall University, head coach at Catholic University, has a lot of experience with a bunch of D1 caliber players and even NFL players. So he's done a great job of pushing me and developing me and turning me into the player I am today, and he continues to do that.
How driven are you guys? You guys are defending champs, so what's keeping the motivation to go for a repeat?
I think just the motivation that we really want it. We got a lot of guys that are really bought into the program. They're really committed. I think he said earlier, 300 and some guys across 3 football teams. So we got a lot of guys that really want to win. You know, we're going to go out there and we're going to shock a lot of people and go back to back.
How's the mindset evolved at Columbus? Because in the time frame you're saying when you joined the team, that's the only time that Columbus has won state championships in their history. Before that, it was always like trying to get there, more of an underdog. Now you guys are the one that everybody's gunning for, and not only that, but like you're on the national radar too.
Yes, sir.
What have you guys done to kind of like maybe not change your approach, kind of approach things the same way, despite now being, in that position?
Well, I think Coach Dunn has done a great job of keeping our heads on our shoulders. You know, none of us think like we're too big for the program or anything. So we're really doing a great job from that standpoint, and the coaching staff. And really, it's all credits to them because they're the ones that, I wouldn't say they keep us motivated, but they're the ones that have instilled this culture that really lets us do great things year after year.
What have you seen so far out of this offense that makes you think it's going to be very, the same or even better than last year?
I think we're going to be really explosive. We got a lot of guys returning, and I think our O-linemen, I think we got the guys that can do the job to step up. We got a good running back, Azrain Adai, Jeff Bandy's brother, Edward Bandy. So we got 2 great running backs, and I think me at tight end, Jose Leon, wide receiver, Alberto Mendoza at quarterback. I think that's a pretty dangerous trio.
So, David, what were your thoughts of that? Just the Columbus offense. I mean, they also lost a one key wide receiver, Tyler Herald, that went over to the Homestead. But overall, a lot of weapons, and up front, they're always big and solid there too.
Yeah, their offensive line is the question for them. I was talking to Coach Dunn a lot about that because I was actually asking him specifically about their defensive line, which has a chance to be like the best in South Florida.
Right.
But they only bring back really one starter from last year on the offensive line. 2 guys a second guy played some games because of injury last year, started some games because of injury. But the weapons are good. The running back, losing Cedric Irvin, who was a 1,000-yard rusher, that's a big deal. But Alberto Mendoza now year 2 is starting quarterback. Obviously was, he was the 4M player of the year, I think, around the state last year. Jose Leon, his wide receiver, headed Appalachian State, is kind of one of the more underrated guys, I think, in South Florida. They had a really good connection last year. A guy who going to App State, but had some pretty big offers at one point in the process. And then, as you mentioned, Benji Blackburn. Like they've got some weapons on offense, but the strength of this team is that defense and that front 4-7, whatever. Like they've got Dylan Stevenson going to Stanford. He's the number 2 recruit in South Florida, according to 24/7. Dalen Russell, who's kind of like a little bit more under the radar as far as a Miami commit can be, a little smaller, kind of undersized, a little bit of a tweener, defensive tackle, defensive end. But he was our defensive player of the year in Dade County last year for the big schools. Robert Williams is a guy they're really high on, had a kind of a breakout spring, defensive tackle, committed to FIU a couple of weeks back. And then they bring in Willis McGahee the 4th as a transfer from Palmetto, gives them kind of like the stand-up edge rusher. Dave Dunn compared him to Josh Uche, who obviously wound up being a first or second round pick, as a guy who can do a little bit of everything from that linebacker spot. So this team should, we said it, they're the clear favorite in 4M. Not to say that no one can knock them off. I don't think they're as invincible as maybe some other teams we're going to talk about later in this season preview. But they're going to be really good. And I think they're like the complete package kind of, especially on defense. And then they just have enough of a core on offense that I really like.
Yeah. And on defense, I've been watching those teams that they've had the last 15 years, and at least talent-wise, this is one of the most talented, maybe the most talented front 7, just in terms of depth that they've had before. When you look at all the guys you mentioned now, and then even a few other guys that are coming up too, maybe not the biggest names, like a Hector Chavez, who stole the show late in the season last year. He's back as well, playmaker. And there's always going to be a few guys. I wonder about the secondary too, because they lost some good ones from last season. So if that unit has to step up, because they'll be tested when they take on teams like Western and so forth. But to wrap this up, as far as the districts go, let's go to 16 4M, a small district, Palmetto, Coral Gables, and South Dade. Now, South Dade starting over with a new coach down there this season. Nate Hudson had been there for quite some time. Chris Reed taking over a team that had fallen on some hard times at 2-7, but Xavion Clayton, a junior quarterback, leading the way there, along with a few other guys like Cedric Melvin, Darius Hughes, Tedrick Lee. They're trying to get the Bucks back to prominence. And
Tedrick Lee, I remember talking to Nate Hudson late last year, like he could be the next like star for South Dade. A really good wrestler too, I'm pretty sure, for them.
Yeah, strong safety, good type. They always get talent down there.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how much can they put together. And then my
and
buddy,
can they hang on to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially nowadays with Homestead so good and the Ridge on the way back.
And South Ridge back on it.
Exactly. And but and then over at Coral Gables, the Cavaliers, our buddy Frank Welsh, always does a good job. They were 5-4 last season. He brings back his quarterback, who also kicks, Andres Rios, a senior. Ahmad Fambro, wide receiver. Evan Novalu plays both corner and free safety. So we'll see what the Cavaliers can do. I'm sure they'll be competitive. But Palmetto, even though they lost a lot of talent, like the Washington brothers and others, they still bring back a lot. Ja'Cory Barney, one of the best receivers all the way around, dual threat athlete too, playing some free safety there too. And they added some defensive help too. When you talk about Charquez Lee coming in at linebacker from LaSalle, Davion Dixon, a big D lineman who transferred just the other day from Belen. This is a team that, that for years they've been getting close. Their best team was probably during the COVID year. They got to the state semifinals. Then Columbus has been in their way. They were competitive with them a couple times last year and couldn't get the job done. They feel like they're going to be right back in it. And looking at that roster, at first, I'll admit, I wasn't sure. I thought Palmetto might be a little down. Now I'm not so sure. Maybe they will be a similar team that'll at least give themselves an opportunity.
Yeah, they're the because Columbus has been the power in this classification for the last few years. But even going back to when they were 8A, I always kind of think of Palmetto and Western in tandem, right? They're the next, they're 2 and 3, pretty much always in some order, trying to knock off Columbus and Palmetto because they were in the same district at one point. They've beaten them sometimes. They've gotten their chances to knock them off. This is on paper not the most talented Palmetto team that there's been, right? Because they've had some really, really, really good teams like the Leonard Taylor,
Rashad Smith, and
that team is still like that was probably the best chance they've had, and they got close that year. They had some injuries, kind of derailed them, but. Ja'Cory Barney he played their last game of the season. I don't remember who they lost to in their final. It might have been Columbus. I can't remember, but he was awesome in that game. He played a lot of quarterback for them. They had some quarterback injuries. That's a big piece for them this year is Luka Goenaga, who they had a quarterback battle last preseason. He was only a sophomore then. Smaller guy, so not like, you don't look at him. He's not, you don't look at him as a future Division I quarterback necessarily, but he was their best guy. He got injured against Norland. He's back healthy, and they've got weapons around him. Like you said, they added on defense. They just got Tamari Johnson as a safety from, getting recruited from Norland. So, they're still probably a step below Columbus until they prove otherwise. But they're good. They should be probably. You look at this region, and you talked about a team like Goldman that's trying to get up to that next level. There's 3 teams you kind of put on pen that they're going to be in the playoffs, right? And then obviously a couple district champions. You got Columbus, you got Western, you got Palmetto, and then after those 3, it's pretty wide open. Doral, I feel pretty good about just because of what we've seen from the last couple of years. But it's pretty wide open behind those 3.
Yeah, and let's hear real quick from 2 of those guys that we mentioned before, Ja'Cory Barney and Charquez Lee, talking about Palmetto's season.
Phil, just wanted to ask you a little bit about the season coming up. A lot of good vibes coming from the off season. Coach was saying that it kind of recharged everybody after it was a tough end to last year. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Why do you feel like that happened in the off season?
Last year, I don't really know what happened. I guess it's because we didn't, get to that point where we were all playing together. Stuff like that, but it's different this year with this team. Like with us working, I definitely see that we all playing together. We all get on each other, but when we messing up, we all, we making sure our brothers doing what we need to be doing. And I feel like this year, we underdogs, and then people expecting us to be kind of on the lower end, but we're gonna surprise a lot of people, and I feel like we gonna win state this year. That's what we're gonna try. That's what we're gonna go for.
So I wasn't here last year, so I don't know what
But this year, like as soon as I walked in, like the chemistry was great, and plus the dark side of the ball, the deep side of the ball, the better side of the ball, we click real great. Like we just got Davion, so it's just everything's just gonna fit in perfect.
How about you? I mean, the recruitment process and a lot,
Yeah.
East Carolina.
Yeah.
Talk about that, and you think some of the schools might open up?
ECU, like I feel like it's a great school for me because like I have a chance of playing my freshman year, and like I stepped in there. It was like they treat me like family. It was a great experience.
For a guy like you and like a guy like Davian coming in, what have you kind of seen? What are you going to bring to this group? That you feel like you can take
Aggressiveness, a lot of 3-and-outs, and just win the game. We're gonna score on this side of the ball too.
Same state. I mean, that's kind of
yes.
How much you talk about it? How much is that motivating you?
Nah, we don't really talk about it. We just know like it's the expectation he got for us, and we gonna make it there. Cause Palmetto, they never made it.
Nah, I know. Me personally, I know. Like, I can feel it in me. I can feel it in me. Like I played with those guys like Jason Marshall, Leonard Taylor. I played with a lot of guys that came through Palmetto. They told me one day this is gonna be my team. We're gonna have to lead it. And, them guys never got to bring them a state championship. We came close, and I was a part of that team, and I get to play with these guys, and I get another chance to take us there. Yeah. So I feel like I'm one of those leaders now, and it's in my hands, and it's in players like us, and all us. We all play a role, but I'm gonna be there to make that play, and I'm just expecting a ring. I got to bring it to us.
Like you were saying, take accountability, leadership, focus. Is that kind of how you guys are keeping that mindset?
Yeah, yes, because the sun, it plays a huge factor in like the working out. And, when people like they be down, tired, we just like boost them back up. Because we got somewhere to be.
Ja'Cory, you said a few of the big names from recent Palmetto years. What did you learn from them? Robbie Washington, Bobby Washington too, guys like that. What did you learn from all of them that stands out to you when you're out on the field? Still, you think about it when you're out there.
I gotta learn that I'm built, but I still got to make those plays. I ain't get here without making those plays, so I still got to stay focused, make those plays, and hold myself, to a higher standard. These kids, the younger kids, look up to me. I got to be that player that they can see, a role model, and they know they can follow me, and it's gonna all be good. So stuff like that.
Is there any area where you can already tell you're a lot better than last year, like on the field when you're out there? Anything you're doing, any area of just playing the position, a receiver?
Yeah, I'll probably say blocking. I had worked on my blocking.
Okay.
Like, I wasn't really a good blocker, but I've been working on blocking and stuff, so yeah, I'm gonna definitely be doing that this year. So.
Yeah, usually like, that's not the part of the game that's so like flashy or anything, but that's important. That's important, obviously. So, this region is always, all the contenders are in it. How much are you looking forward to the battles that are going to take to get to where you want to go?
Looking forward to all of them. We ain't ducking no smoke. We coming for it all. So in order to get there, we got to see who we got to see. So if you on my way, hey, you got to get rolled over. That's just how it's gonna go.
All right, so we've broken down the entire region. David, you kind of gave a little rundown just before we heard from the Palmetto guys.
Got ahead of myself.
It's but it's pretty much the case of who may make the playoffs. So perfect segue right now. Right. Let's just have our overall pick. Do we think Columbus is going to repeat, or and against who? Who comes out of that Orlando region? You think?
Yeah, I mean it's hard not to pick Columbus right now. I think Monarch. They're the one team we kind of talked about that's in Region 3. I think it's between them and Central. Frankly, us two just don't know enough about all those Palm Beach teams. We don't cover them on a regular basis, especially this early in the year. Hard not to pick Columbus. I think they're maybe like the best coach team in South Florida. And they're as talented as they've been probably since 2019 when they won their first state title with Henry Parrish and Xavier Henderson, and that was probably on paper the most talented team they've had. It's different this year. It's more on the defense this side, but this team is, as Dave Dunn said, kind of stacks up with that group in terms of like Division I level players they have.
Yeah, on all those points, I think they're just still too balanced, and I love what this defense is capable of doing this year with all they have up front. And if they stay healthy, I don't see any way that they're not at least in the final once again, unless we're overlooking somebody up north. That it's you. I say Orlando because almost always it's always Orlando matchup.
Apopka is really good.
Right.
That was it came down to a trick play in the state championship game for Columbus to win.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but I mean, a dream for South Florida fans would be if somehow Monarch could sneak through and the seeds break perfectly, and we'd have yet another Dade Broward matchup in the final if it was like a Columbus Monarch state championship game. I know Monarch would love to see that, but they have a lot of work to do though to get through their region and so forth. But yeah, I'm with you. I think the Explorers, this is another step in their evolution as a program. I think they can. This is the year that they get a repeat, and it'll be their first repeat. And like we said before, we know the other powerhouses that we're going to talk about down the stretch later in future episodes that are going for 4 or 5 state championships in a row. This is Columbus's first, another step for them to get to that upper echelon if they can do that this season. But we'll be back next week breaking down Class 3M, which, as you know, involves St. Thomas Aquinas, always the powerhouse. Speaking of teams that are trying to make history of winning 5 in a row, and of course, Homestead, Southridge, and several others that are going to be contending for that crown as well. But for now, we thank everyone for joining us once again. For David Wilson, I'm Andre Fernandez. We'll see you guys next week.